silence, indecision or appeasement, these are not just failures of Mohammed Yunus, but all of the United States and the wider West. As far as US is concerned, it's a country where Yunus is highly regarded. Perhaps that explains why Washington is overlooking his failures. And that includes its legacy media like the New York Times, which has framed Deepu Das's killing as a generalized pattern of religious intolerance across South Asia. Yes, some US lawmakers have sent a letter to Mohammed Yunus. They've expressed concerns over the total ban on Awami League. And more importantly, US Congressman Thomas Suozzi has raised an alarm over the mob killing of Deepu Chandra Das. That includes the broader threats to religious minorities in Bangladesh. But will this alarm suffice? Given not a word of condemnation on the Hindu genocide has arrived from either the US President himself or his core team. That includes the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, US Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, or even the MAGA favorite Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. Mind you, Vance's wife is a Hindu, while Gabbard is a practicing Hindu. In fact, Donald Trump's tone-deaf policy on Bangladesh and its minorities has raised key critical questions. I put them forward for you. Why has the US State Department failed to designate Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh as a foreign terrorist organization? This, when it is the Jamaat that is responsible for the alarming rise in attacks on minorities, particularly Hindus. Not to forget Bangladesh's surge in Islamic radicalization at the hands of the Jamaatis. Begging the question, what explains the suspension of the Awami League when militant extremist organizations like Jamaat and Ansarullah Bangla team are active? Should Yunus and his regime not be tried at the International Criminal Court for Hindu genocide? And will Yunus regime take responsibility for the 144 jihadist militants that they released from prisons as Yunus took over in August of 2024? These jihadists belong to ABT, JMB and the Hizb-ut-Tahrir, all directly affiliated to either the ISIS or Al-Qaeda. So the question is, why is US sitting like a mute spectator? The same Washington which proclaims to be the messiah of human rights and democracy is now feigning ignorance on Dhaka. In fact, even before Sergio Gore has donned his principal hat as ambassador to India, he has already turned active as special envoy to South and Central Asia. A day ago, Gore not only congratulated Professor Yunus for his trade and tariff negotiations, but also discussed the funeral of Usman Hadi. Yet, no word of condemnation on the killing of Deepu Chandra Das. Why? Bringing us to the big question. Has the burning of Bangladesh's conscience exposed the US hypocrisy? Anarchy is ruling the roost in Bangladesh. The questions that are being raised about the Yunus regime's tolerance, if not tacit support for radical groups, and here's why so. The Islamist leader and India hater Usman Hadi has been in fact given the status of a shaheed. There was a state honor accorded to him and a day of national mourning was declared for Hadi. There was public display of ISIS flags during Hadi's funeral, yet no Western condemnation. Unabated attacks on Hindus, other minorities are only rising with impunity. Media channel buildings have been burned down by mobs. Radicals are demanding sacking of global TV journalists. All of this, of course, begs the question, what is the Western community doing about it? Yunus is, of course, under pressure both internally and from world powers, or at least some of them. A group of influential US lawmakers have urged Bangladesh's interim government to ensure the election in February and ensure that it is free, fair and inclusive. In fact, in a letter to Chief Advisor Mohammed Yunus, US Representatives Gregory Meeks, Bill Huizenga and Sydney Kamlagar Dove warned that banning an entire political party could in fact disenfranchise a large section of voters. The lawmakers said freedom of association and individual criminal responsibility are fundamental human rights, cautioning that suspending party activities or reviving the flawed International Crimes Tribunal could even undermine democratic credibility. They've called on the interim government or a future elected administration to revisit this decision to ban the Awami League as Bangladesh now prepares for its first election since the fall of the previous government. Following Hadi's death, the US Embassy in Bangladesh issued a condolence message. In fact, it stated that the US Embassy joins the people of Bangladesh in mourning the loss of youth leader Sharif Usman Hadi and offers deepest condolences to his family, friends and supporters. The French Embassy in Bangladesh expressed deep sorrow at the death of Sharif Usman Hadi, strongly condemning all forms of political violence and extending heartfelt condolences to his family, friends and supporters. This one is particularly shocking given that France is a time-tested ally to India. But that's not all. The European Union mission in Bangladesh said they were deeply saddened by the death of Hadi and extended their sincere condolences to his family, friends and all those affected. Mind you, it is his very family members, like his sister, who are spewing venom against India. Messages of condolences were posted by the German and French missions, aligning with the broader Western diplomatic response, condemning the killing and urging accountability. But while they all mourned the death of a radical anti-India student leader, not a word from any of them on the persecution of minorities under Yunus's watch. And that's what we are going to now deep dive into. For that, let me introduce my esteemed guests today. I'm joined in by the former diplomat and Chief Information Commissioner, Yash Sinha. Thank you so much for joining in. I can see I'm also joined in by Shoaib Chaudhry, who's a renowned Bangladeshi journalist, also joined in by Adele Nazarian, who's a senior fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. Thank you so much for joining in, all of you. Adele, perhaps you can help me understand better this kind of mute spectator approach, or rather is this a deliberate silence being feigned by not just the State Department, the US President himself, who is in fact always taken a stand for when it comes to, say, the rights of the minorities, the killings of the innocent. Most recently, he's always been very active on anti-Semitism. What explains this strategic silence when it comes to the unabated attacks on the Hindus and the minorities in Bangladesh?
Well, there's absolutely no way to hide anymore, if they were trying to, that Hindus are absolutely being targeted with hell and with fury in Bangladesh, and it's only getting worse. I think right now the State Department and the Trump administration is doing, the White House is assessing the situation at hand. You have to keep in mind, there's about 270,000 to 300,000 people in the US identifying as Bangladeshi alone. And of that group, roughly 71% were immigrants. So make it about 190,000 Bangladeshi individuals who immigrated to the US. It is unclear what their ideological alliances are. But I can tell you, based on conversations that I've had, quite a few of them were actually not supporting Sheikh Hasina, who is the former prime minister, who was forced out by the former administration. I think anyone who's familiar with the situation knows this. So I think there's a lot of due diligence that is being done, a lot of cautionary, attention into what sort of wording should be used regarding this. Elections are upcoming in 2026 in February, unless they get pushed back further. But I think Muhammad Yunus is very well known, let's say, in Western circles. And the only thing that I can say needs to be done at this point is, I think it's critically important that not only, and I'm sure it's going to happen, that the State Department, the US government unequivocally condemns the lynching of Hindu Dipu Chandra Das, Bangladeshi Hindu, and they have to also formally designate Jamaat-e-Islami as a terrorist or terrorist-adjacent organization under the US law. I'm not saying Jamaat-e-Islami was directly behind this, but I can tell you that even though there's no, confirmed evidence that JEI was part of this lynching bears all the unmistakable hallmarks of an Islamic mob violence, the same sort of violence we saw that was carried out by JEI during Sheikh Hasina's leading up to her elections, and ultimately which pushed her out of the country. And I can guarantee you this is only going to get worse. And it's not, look, any of us here could be targets. If someone says something, a mere rumor that has been unsubstantiated, unconfirmed, it doesn't take more than a mob that is radicalized to come in and try to kill anyone who speaks out, even if it's not even substantiated.
Ambassador Yash Sinha, they were silent when Chinmoy Krishna Das was arrested. They are silent when Dipu Das has been brutally murdered. He's been mob lynched, he's been burnt. and this is just part of the series of persecution that's been taking place, a genocide rather, directed towards the Hindus. Even if one were to go by the fact that they are not supportive of Sheikh Hasina, but does that justify the unabated killings against the Hindus, the minorities, and the free hand being given to the radicals, the support being given to Jamaat or say the ABT? Many of them have direct linkages with the Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
Thank you, Kacha, for having me on your show. Why am I not surprised? Because the Western hypocrisy on this is very blatant. It's very apparent. We're aware of the forces behind the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, and I don't want to get into that. But the fact of the matter is that a gentleman was paradropped as chief advisor, and his statements right from the beginning are very clear. And I remember his appearance in New York with Presidents Clinton and Obama and Mrs. Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, it's very clear. We don't really need to go on about it. But the fact of the matter is that when a person like Hadi is killed, the U.S. Embassy issues a condolence note. Fair enough. I mean, it's their right to issue a condolence note in their official handle. But the French and German embassies to fly their flags at half-mast, I was very surprised because there are certain diplomatic practices that govern a national flag flying at half-mast. But be that as it may, I think it only brings out the double standards that they have. If they choose to ignore the attacks on minorities in India. I mean, today I was reading in the New York Times, for instance, that they talked about Deepu Das, and then they compared it, or at least drew a parallel with some poor gentleman being mistaken for a Bangladeshi in Kerala and being set upon. So, I mean, that is the sort of biases that they work in, and we are well aware of that. But I think what is happening is far more concerning to us because we live in the region. Our neighborhood is extremely unstable at present, and what's happening in Bangladesh is a matter of deep concern, especially when you have jihadi forces meddling and jihadi forces actually taking control. In fact, I just read today that the brother of Usman Hadi actually blamed Muhammad Yunus for the killing of his brother. So I think the situation, it's the rule of mobocracy, it's the rule of the mob, it's no more the rule of law. And I think this is a matter that should concern everybody, not just Bangladesh's neighbors.
All right, Shoaib, I want to quickly come to you. When you talk about the kind of mobocracy that's taking place in Bangladesh, why shouldn't, say, a Jamaat-e-Islami or even the ABT, all of them be designated as foreign terrorist organizations by the US State Department? And from your understanding, you've been studying Muhammad Yunus very closely. Perhaps you can enlighten us why this is not happening and why is this soft, what explains this soft approach towards Muhammad Yunus?
Thank you very much, Akanksha. You see, the reason behind the silence of the US Embassy and the United Nations about the gruesome murder of Deepu Chandradas and attacks on Hindu in Bangladesh, just let me explain to you or bring to you one instant example. Hours ago, Shahidul Alam, he is projected as a prominent photographer and a key aide of Muhammad Yunus, with whom Yunus met Alexander Soros in September 2024. So Shahidul Alam published a post on Facebook stating that Deepu Chandra Das's murder is the reason behind people's anger against Awami League. This is the interpretation Yunus wants to project. This is the interpretation Yunus wants to use to mislead the international community that Deepu Chandra is also a victim of people's anger against Sheikh Hasina and Awami League, which is absolutely false and a blatant lie. Now, as Ambassador Sinha also explained, that this scenario, you see, I should say this is Americans and the United Nations, they are coming with a selective statement. Because if you remember Volker Turk, the UN official, he issued many statements and he even told BBC that he facilitated the jihadist coup of 2024 by exerting pressure and threatening the armed forces of Bangladesh. So UN, United States, US deep state, George Soros, and all other individuals and figures who are behind jihadist coup and the so-called regime change in in many countries in the world. They are the culprits actually. They are behind what is happening to my country. And Dipu Chandra's murder, I would say, by not mentioning the case of Dipu Chandra Das, the US administration, the United Nations, they have proved that they are also one of those perpetrators of this crime. And I absolutely agree with you. Yunus should be brought to the International Criminal Court along with his jihadist Islamist cabal.
All right, stay with me because we also have a reaction of Hadi's brother, and it's important to hear how betrayed Hadi and his entire family, friends, and in fact the entire student wing that he hailed from feels at the moment, because it is this very student wing that was in fact used by Muhammad Yunus and the larger forces at play, mainly the radicals, to ensure the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. Let's in fact listen in to what Usman Hadi's brothers had to say.
আপনারাই ওসমান হাদিকে হত্যা করিয়েছেন, আবার আপনারা এটাকে ইস্যু করে নির্বাচন বানচাল করার চেষ্টা করতেছেন। আপনারা যারা রাষ্ট্র ক্ষমতায় থাকাকালীন অবস্থায় ওসমান হাদিকে হত্যা করা হয়েছে, এই হত্যার দায় আপনারা এড়াতে পারবেন না। আপনাদেরও বিচার হবে। শহীদ ওসমান হাদির গোটা খুনি চক্রকে জাতির সামনে উপস্থাপন করুন। একটা জিনিস আপনারা মনে রাখবেন, বাংলাদেশের জুলাই বিপ্লবের আগে যারা ক্ষমতাধর ছিলেন, যারা রাষ্ট্রকে নিজেদের মনে করতেন, তারা কিন্তু আজকে কেউই বাংলাদেশে নাই।
All right, so another political lot now demanding justice. Adele, what do you make of the threats that are now being issued over there? And we already have a lot of anger brewing within the minorities. Over here, the popular sentiment in India is that what Muhammad Yunus is doing, and by being a mute spectator to this kind of genocide against the Hindus, why shouldn't he be tried by the ICC?
So, thank you for that. Look, there is no doubt in my mind that Yunus should be held responsible for this. But I have to say, this is not different than what happened in Iran with the ousting of the Shah. If you want to talk about it, there were student-led groups with radical Islamic extremist elements with them who worked with the current government there to oust the Shah. And of course, it was the help of the Democrats, who was the previous administration, the same way Democrats pushed out Sheikh Hasina. So of course, the mob didn't kill, basically, this is not about, one man. This is about basically the failure of a man, Muhammad Yunus, to protect the most vulnerable members of a society. And he absolutely needs to be held accountable. And frankly, I think it's the United States' responsibility truly to stand up and to step up. And I'm looking forward to a statement from the President, Commander-in-Chief, to specifically address this issue. On Christmas Eve of all nights should be the most important, powerful day to do it, to be honest with you, to show that the United States truly stands for equality for all. It doesn't matter if you're living in a Muslim majority country, in a Christian majority country, in a whatever majority country, whatever religion you are, whatever faith you follow, you have to be protected. And radical Islamic mob rule should never be allowed to dictate whether someone gets to live or die, not only based on if it's a rumor or not, but based on if they have a different set of ideological values. This is not the American way. This is not the Western way. And I think that if there is no designation of Jamaat-e-Islami and other groups that are 1,000% behind the downfall of Bangladesh, the same way that Afghanistan and Pakistan have been subjected to radical rule, that there's got to be something that has to be done.
Ambassador Sinha, if you go by what Adele is stating, she's made a very interesting point over here by referring to the ouster of the Shah in Iran. We've seen how there's been destabilizing done by, say, Western forces when if they want to prop up someone as a president, it could even be a terrorist, as has been the case in Syria. We've seen how regimes have been changed in South Asia particularly. Do you think these are alarming times for the overall stability of South Asia, all of them impacting India directly if one were to look at what's happened as recently as in Nepal or what's happening in Bangladesh? We cannot discount what's happening at the Durand line between Afghanistan and Pakistan as well.
I think Mr. Zarian she made a very interesting comparison with Iran. Of course, I would presume that the United States, Democrats or Republicans, had nothing to do with the ouster of the Shah. Be that as it may, I think as far as encouraging Islamic radicalism, I think the US and the West is squarely responsible, particularly the US in the region, whether it's in Afghanistan, Pakistan. Pakistan is the hub, the center of terrorism, as we all know. Whether it was Iraq, ouster of Saddam Hussein, and then the resultant chaos. Libya, we know the chaos is still unfolding. Syria, there's some semblance of, I won't call it normalcy, but authority when a former jihadi has become the president. So I think...
No, but that's what I'm saying. This is the hypocrisy and the double standards of it. When they deem someone fit, it can be a jihadist, it can be a radical, as is also the case in Bangladesh, the free hand that Muhammad Yunus is giving to these radicals to say the Jamaat, an organization that was banned under Sheikh Hasina. But now Sheikh Hasina is suddenly the terrorist who is now under exile in India, according to, say, Muhammad Yunus and all of those who are supporting him at the moment.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think the letter from the congressmen and women, the ranking members of the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives.
But is that going to suffice? Is that going to suffice?
No, it's not, because it's too little too late. And especially the fact that they themselves highlight that it has to be free and fair. How can an election be free and fair when the largest political party is banned? If there is a due process of law, if there are people in that party who have committed crimes, then certainly try them properly under what is proper jurisprudence, not in absentia, the way they've done it, not even allowing a defense to be mounted. So I think what you need to really look at is this sham that has sort of been perpetrated in the name of the democracy and elections, because the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, whatever the provocation, I'm not going to go into that, was patently unconstitutional and illegal. The paradropping of the chief advisor and his advisors, again, people who've been supported and funded by sources that we are all aware of. And now, when there is a sort of a rampage against the minorities and these Islamic forces are holding sway, are ruling, there is very little condemnation. Not only condemnation, surprisingly, there are condolences being extended for the killing of radical leaders, instead of expressing concern for attacks on minorities and killing of Hindus and Christians and Buddhists and even Sufis. So I think this hypocrisy needs to be called out. I think the whole world needs to see where, because I've worked in the UN and observed the UN closely. I know how these special rapporteurs
what are these special rapporteurs doing? In fact, there's not a word that has come in from the UN Human Rights Commissioner so far.
They represent interest groups, so they're not going to be fair.
And they were very quick in coming up with a human rights violation report after what happened in August of 2024. So it's rather surprising and shocking that there's no report with this kind of genocide that's taking place. Shoaib, if you can also give us an idea from ground zero in terms of how these attacks are continuing unabated. Unfortunately, because of the dissent on media in Bangladesh, much of that information is only filtering through unverified sources on social media.
Akanksha, first of all, Bangladeshi media is currently under heavy censorship. Journalists are afraid of telling the truth, number one. Number two, now I was seeing the report in your channel about the death of a person in Dhaka city. I'd like to humbly inform you that I have spoken to the intelligence agencies. They said it was not a Molotov cocktail, it was an improvised explosive device. And they say this kind of device is only used by the jihadist groups. So, and the place they attack is called Media Gully, the media lane, where the journalists, junior reporters, and members of the cultural arena in Dhaka, they go for spending time together. So it was a direct attack on the cultural activists and media personnel. We cannot just say it's an isolated incident that there was a Molotov cocktail blast. No, they threw an IED on the Media Gully, targeting the journalists and members of the cultural arena in Bangladesh. So, Akanksha, in one word, if I want to say, the very identity of Bengalis, the very Bengali identity is under threat because by the core value of Bengali identity is secularism. We Bengalis, 180 million Bengalis by nature and by culture, we are seculars. And that makes us distinctively different with the Pakistanis. Pakistanis are not secular. And that was the reason that we separated ourselves from Pakistan in 1971. And now this is an attack was also against our war. This is an attack on the very identity of Bengali.
Adele, if I could have quick closing thoughts from you. There's a lot of tit for tat currently happening between New Delhi and Dhaka. This as the Western nations, particularly the United States, of course, France, Germany, as we've discussed, even the EU are only acting as bystanders. What's the role and the need of the hour, especially when it comes to multilateral forums like the UN?
You know, I have to say that the UN has disappointed me in more ways than I can even
Thank you for
count.
saying that.
And I thank you. And it's really unfortunate because everyone is by now very well aware of the corruption that happens under that roof that tends to present itself as being the hallmark of democracy and justice. There is no justice. And frankly, I feel very, very ashamed at times that the Cyrus Cylinder, which is the very first ever indication of human rights by King Cyrus the Great, is sitting there in the halls of the UN. And I think there needs to be massive change there. So I think that at this point, it's going to take very courageous leadership to honestly, to bite the bullet, to go against the flow. And this is where you can call them, the people who are the true revolutionaries without being bloody, of course.
I'm running short of time. I need to give quick closing thoughts to Ambassador Sidha as well. Ambassador, tomorrow is when Khaleda Zia's son Tariq Rahman is expected to arrive. Do you think that the BNP could be a game changer in the overall scenario at the moment?
I do. I think that we've seen the BNP.
I'd like Ambassador Sinha also to answer that. Thank you so much.
So I think the two big parties traditionally have been the Awami League and the BNP. And I think in any free or fair election, particularly if the Awami League is not allowed to participate, it should be a cakewalk for the BNP. But given the current circumstances, when the Jamaat-e-Islami and all other Islamic elements are being given, are being encouraged, actively encouraged by the current regime in Dhaka and by their benefactors outside, I think it's difficult to take a call, but certainly with Begum Khalida ailing critically ill, her son will perhaps provide some leadership. Of course, I must add that the son was in exile in the UK for so many years, obviously for crimes that he's been alleged to have committed.
All right, many thanks to you, gentlemen, and Adele for joining in on this discussion here on Brass Tacks. We all know that the new year is around the corner. Here's hoping that a new dawn actually takes place as far as Bangladesh is concerned. But with that, we're quickly shifting focus over to the other story. We've been tracking a daylight molestation in Bengaluru has shocked residents. A 21-year-old woman, as you can see in those visuals on your screen, was groped, slapped and harassed outside her PG. According to the first information report, Naveen and the victim became acquainted through Instagram in 2024 and remained in regular contact via phone calls and messages. Now, in this video, which has been accessed by News 18, you can watch the horror as it plays out. The young woman is being harassed in broad daylight. The incident reportedly took place at around 3:20 p.m. on 22nd of December. According to details, the accused arrived in a car and allegedly dragged the woman on the road right in front of the PG accommodation. Despite the woman screaming for help, the man allegedly continued to assault her, touched her inappropriately, and even tore her clothes. Let's quickly bring you a report by Harish Upadhyay.
It has sent shockwaves across the city. In fact, what we are learning from the police and what's mentioned in the FIR is that the accused, Naveen, and the victim, in fact, got in touch on Instagram. Later on, they met and they were friends for a good 3 months or so, after which Naveen insisted that they get into a relationship, but the victim was not keen on it. She changed her job, she changed her PG as well, but Naveen continued to follow her. The police are now checking his antecedents as well, but more worryingly, this is not the first time that a woman working and staying in Fiji has been attacked very close to Fiji. Earlier as well, we've seen instances where that people have attacked women inside the Fiji, outside the Fiji. They've followed them, they've molested them, and after which Bengaluru police gave out a very detailed guidelines on safety measures that the PGs should have. Many activists now coming out and saying this also reflects lack.
All right, what's even more shocking is the response from the state government. Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka, D.K. Shiv Kumar, has asked if he should share the list of such things that have happened during the BJP rule. A comment that reiterated the stance taken by the Chief Minister of the state back in January this year itself. In April this year, the Home Minister, G. Parameshwara, the man in charge of upholding law and order in the state, said such incidents tend to happen in a city as big as Bengaluru. But let's also listen in to what D.K. Shiv Kumar had to say.
Shall I send a list of the such things when happened at the BJP rule? Karnataka is the most respected state in the country with the governance and the law and order.
All right, let's try and quickly get in perspective, and for that I'm joined in by leading women's rights activist Brinda Adige, also joined in by Sumit Chandra, who's a lawyer at the Supreme Court. Thank you so much. Brinda, as a woman from Bengaluru, what are your thoughts? I mean, this is also sounding like a very cliched question, given that we've been seeing it happen unabated throughout the years, whether it's the Congress rule or the previous rules of the government. And what do you make of this PG horror of sorts? A place where you're supposed to feel protected, a woman openly being groped, slapped in broad daylight, absolutely shocking.
Security, protection, safety of women is never taken seriously. We debate and talk about it a lot. Governments, whether it is the BJP government or JDS government or Congress government, they also talk a lot. They even make policies and laws, supposedly put mechanisms in place, but there is no accountability. And because there is no accountability, these cases continue to happen. How often do the police register street sexual harassment? How often are these cases, the charge sheet is filed in court immediately? They sit on all of these cases, hoping that they will come to a compromise, because the assumption is that if people have been in a relationship, people have been friendly, then these things are bound to happen. It's a very patriarchal, misogynistic, sexist attitude that women must bear the brunt of being in any kind of a relationship. So the onus is being put again and again on women. So then why are police there? Why are there courts? Why is there a Hoysala and patrolling? We don't want any of them. Are you saying women must look after ourselves? Women must now fend for ourselves? We must defend ourselves? Then why did we elect you and pay our taxes to you? Isn't it your job to ensure that protection and safety is extended to women? CCTV cameras have been purchased and put at all the street corners, everywhere. You can find that from the Nirbhaya funds. Police are supposedly monitoring them. So why is there no action? Why isn't that any intervention is happening? Here there is a CCTV camera, so you're seeing it. But what have the police done? There is
That's
no
a very valid concern.
proactive actions by police. They wait for the person to come and make a complaint. And often it is difficult for women to come and make a complaint because of the tedious and cumbersome processes they have to suffer through in courts. And elected representatives, chief minister, home minister, deputy minister, comparing, were these things not happening there? That is why there was a change.
So let me quickly bring in Sumit on that note. Brinda, let's quickly bring in Sumit on that note. As far as street sexual harassment cases are concerned, Sumit Chandra, perhaps you will be in a better position to enlighten us. What are the challenges and what is the rate at which they are filed? Over here, there was much brouhaha given the fact that you have CCTV footage to corroborate the victim's claims. There are many cases in which there is no CCTV footage. Apart from the fact that this has happened under broad daylight, you can't be expecting police to be present at every nook and cranny of the city, patrolling 24/7.
Yes, like Brindaji rightly pointed out, and I agree with her sentiments on this. There are issues, there are laws that exist, but the implementation of the laws possibly is not as implemented as it could possibly. But given the also the suggestion and the idea that police cannot be present all the time, so
That
what needs to
also
be
places the onus on the bystanders, which is why
yes.
I raised that point. Because look at the irresponsible attitude of bystanders, not just here in Bengaluru, it's the case pan-India.
Interestingly, though these bystanders, in fact, somebody had taken up this issue before the Supreme Court in the case of Sanjeev Kumar versus State of Himachal Pradesh. But the Supreme Court held that just passive presence at the scene does not make the person an abettor. The issue there was that shouldn't these people also be punished for abetment because they were there and not taking any action? But that is where the Supreme Court says no, if it's just a passive presence at the scene, then it won't be an abetment. But of course, if they are participating into it or encouraging it in any manner, then of course that would come within the definition of abetment. And even those people present at the scene of crime can also be held accountable and punished as the offender itself. So these issues have come up earlier before the courts.
Vrinda, would you like to come in on that? What has been your observation on the roads of Bengaluru, especially when it comes to the citizens' responsibility?
Increasingly, we are seeing this bystanders as spectators, silent. Why did this happen? Because courts are not treating the witnesses or those who intervene respectfully. Neither do they fast track these cases. So no witness wants to come forward. Nobody wants to intervene because then they will be witnesses in a case that is registered over there. Now, if it is one time and it is done quickly, well and good. But the onus again is on the witness 5 years down the line. Remember what you were doing there. You were standing on the left side or the right side. Did you stop because you heard? So you make life miserable for the witness. So who wants to come forward? So it is the courts that must also take a responsibility for this. Cannot place it and saying that if you have tacitly standing there, then you cannot be an abettor. Who is the abettor? Why should you call me an abettor? I am willing to come in. I am willing to intervene. But would you give me that respect, give me that protection, and extend the same courtesy that you must? Because
the victims are not feeling protected. Well, the victims are not feeling protected, let alone how protected will the bystanders feel. Sumit, would you like to weigh in on the kind of criminal intimidation that also women today are facing when it comes to even filing a case that also includes the kind of moralizing, the social stigmatization associated with complaints?
See, first of all, let me just clarify. There are laws in place. There are witnesses are protected. There are witness protection programs in place. Everything is in existence. We cannot actually blame the courts for this. There are laws in place. There are machinery in place.
But why isn't, if there's a law in place, if there's machinery in place, there's also some gap somewhere and some failures somewhere. I want to quickly bring in Brinda also, and I'll come back to you. Brinda.
There are no dearth of laws. There are no dearth of policies.
Agree.
We have enough and more. Now, the question here is, if I am going to intervene, what does the police look at me as? Somebody who helped, supported, assisted? Or I become a witness? So, that is how the law is. But that doesn't mean that I must come within the confines of that law. How do you treat me as a citizen who's walking past and says, yes, I must assist and I must go there? Okay, let us assume that within the confines of law, you treat me as a witness. You will want to go put me through the rigors, the cumbersome, tedious processes and procedures of law because I assisted somebody, helped somebody, and that's how my court is? No. 78 years down the line, should the courts not become friendly to citizens? You become citizen friendly because, like you said, police cannot be everywhere. Agreed. So you bring in technology, CCTV cameras. So you say, okay, fine, now there is so much of patrolling to be done. We've given everybody Hoysala cars. But the cars are just moving past. The impunity with which this man has come and done that because he
Precisely
knows
my
he's
point.
not going to
Sumit
get
Chandra.
punished.
Let me
So the
clarify
onus is on the
this.
court.
Right. So
Let me clarify this very strongly because this is through the channel I would like to tell to all the citizens. It is not as scary to be a witness in a crime. Witness will be required only at two stages. One, at the time during the investigation, where the police would want to record the statements of the witnesses to prepare the charge sheet and prepare a case against the accused. And eventually, at the stage when during the trial, the evidence takes place and the witness has to be cross examined. Only on those two aspects, the witness needs to be present. There is no as kind of a harassment or the scary picture being given. I think if that is given, the little bit of people who are already good citizens wanting to be witnesses in crime or any kind of a criminal offense would also get deterred by this kind of a statement. So let me make it clear as a lawyer. I mean, I have seen this. I can assure that witnesses are not harassed in a manner which is being portrayed. Brindaji, I think I'll like to just clear this.
I did not
Listen,
talk
I
that
don't
they are
want to jump to
scared or harassed.
other cases,
The
but
tedious
when you're
process.
looking at, say, even Sengar's case, Akhlaq's case, all of this as far as witness intimidation is concerned has cropped up. These are ongoing cases that we are looking at, but let me not dilute the moot point over here. And Brinda, I'd like to give you closing thoughts. Also take a moment to weigh in on the deep-rooted patriarchy, the sort of what people may even call Talibani mindset, that if a woman has not welcomed your advances, what gives you the right to grope her, slap her like this? Also a word of caution for all of these women who are now trying to find out partners, say on social media platforms, whether it's Instagram like in this case or say other social media platforms like Facebook, others as well.
Yes. First and foremost, the woman came forward in this particular case to register a complaint. And I think that's the bravest thing to do, the right thing to do, and don't be afraid. Whatever are the police or the courts, they are there for you and for me. I'm talking about tedious processes, and that responsibility entirely lies with the judiciary, prosecution, and the police. If you're looking for partners on Instagram or any of the social media, go ahead, do it. But you also want to be prudent enough to find out who are his family, who are his friends, and all of those things, and then make those choices. But that said and done, I think it is time for us to educate men. Educate men and make them understand that women are equal citizens of this nation, and they have constitutional right to say yes or no to a relationship.
Absolutely.
Don't get carried away by any of the films or TV serials where you think the toxic masculinity is being portrayed as the hero or the heroism that every man should follow.
Like they say, we've taught our daughters to choose, but we've not been able to teach our sons to respect the woman's right to choose. Many thanks to you,
accept
Brinda.
it. Yes.
Many thanks to you, Brinda and Sumit, for joining in on this discussion. With that, shifting focus over to space. In a historic mission, ISRO's heaviest rocket LVM-3M6 successfully placed a US communication satellite into the orbit. Why is this significant? Let's break it down for you.
3, 2, 1, 0. Both S200 motors ignited.
On board ISRO's powerful LVM-3M6 took off a next-generation commercial communication satellite.
LVM-3M6
India's Bahubali rode to life this morning, carrying a massive payload into low Earth orbit, Bluebird 6, a communication satellite built by American firm AST Space Mobile. 6 tons, it is the heaviest commercial satellite ever launched by ISRO's LVM-3 rocket. The 43.5-meter tall rocket, supported by 2 S-200 solid boosters, lifted off majestically at 8:55 a.m. this morning, and within minutes, the satellite separated and began its journey around the Earth.
All crucial elements. The mission director authorizes.
After a flight journey of about 15 minutes, the spacecraft Bluebird Block 2, riding piggyback on the rocket, got separated and reached its intended orbit at an altitude of about 520 kilometers.
Very close to the launch.
Equipped with one of the largest phased array antennas ever deployed in low Earth orbit, the satellite aims to bring 4G and 5G voice, data and messaging coverage directly to mobile phones, bridging the digital divide directly from space.
Launch vehicle has successfully and precisely injected the Bluebird Block 2 communication satellite in the intended orbit. Let me congratulate the New Space India Limited, the launch vehicle teams of the Department of Space, and the satellite project team of AST Space Mobile on this outstanding achievement and contribution for the global community. This is our 104th launch from Sriharikota, also the 9th successful mission of LVM-3 launch vehicle, demonstrating its 100% reliability.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the launch as a significant stride in India's space sector. He said it marked a proud milestone in India's space journey and reinforces our growing role in the global commercial launch market. This liftoff marks another step in ISRO's push to expand its footprint in the global commercial launch market. It's onwards and upwards from here on for India's premier space agency.
All right, and joining me on the broadcast now is Mr. Naveen Narayanan, who's a former ISRO scientist. Many thanks to you, Mr. Narayanan, for joining in on the Brass Tacks. The Bluebird Block 2 communication satellite is not only the largest, it's also the heaviest commercial communication satellite launched by ISRO from Indian soil. What's your assessment in terms of the target and achievement by ISRO?
Well, it's a proud movement for ISRO as well as for the country. As you know that the weight of the satellite is roughly 6,100 kg. It's heavy. It goes into 518 kilometers orbit. It's a low Earth orbit. So it is an achievement because always you know that heavier the payload, better you are and happier you are. So I personally feel it's a great achievement, yes.
So in terms of connectivity, especially to the remote parts of India, which is being discussed very actively, do you see ISRO's latest launch as a milestone?
Well, it depends how you look at it because the remotest areas, yes, there are there, but I am sure about the cost of this system is going to be more heavier than, you see, of course, the connectivity is going to be there between the telephones without any change, but the point is there will be some kind of, they have to charge you for that. The charge will be certainly much higher than what is the charge you are paying now. That's what I feel about it. So that way, the remotest areas, it will not be affordable for the people.
Okay.
But that is not my point. My point is that satellite you take it and it's a technological advancement, you take it. But they are doing the business, that also you take it. My problem or my interest is I am able to lift that weight and then put it into low Earth orbit successfully, flawlessly. So that is my enjoyment. Now what happened to the satellite? It is healthy and the system is working. Honestly, we wish them good luck. But I am constrained to think that we have done a job which makes me feel proud of it, yeah.
And by all means, you should be feeling proud. So the mission is part of a commercial agreement between New Space India Limited and US-based AST and Science LLC. What does this mean for India's space economy?
I see, you see that is a very important point. Now we have proved that we are capable of launching such a heavy weight into the low Earth orbit. Now the Americans are doing some business out of it. That is fine. Now for the rest of the world, here is an example where we have lifted this weight and then put it into the right orbit. So every country needs some way or other some satellite for their own use. It could be for weather, it could be for remote sensing, it could be for communication, it could be for television, so on and so forth. But the point is they need it. Now, in the market, this is a monopoly right now being done by Americans as well as the Europeans. I am keeping purposely the Chinese and the Russians away. Now we are in the field now. Now we are also, can I use the word competitor in doing this?
Okay.
Our cost, I am not sure about the cost of this mission, but it will be certainly cheaper than the costs which are going to be quoted by our competitors. So that way we have a reliable system. I am talking about the launching, and we are capable of flawlessly launch the satellite. and put it into the orbit, and for a cost which is cheaper. Now, this is an achievement. Now, this achievement certainly calls for a great celebration, but I feel the world will look for, if some country wants a satellite, they cannot brush us aside. They will come to you for any.
So, Mr. Narayanan, lastly, this mission reflects increasing India and US cooperation in space technology. Is this now a big win for global collaboration, especially when it comes to India and US collaborating in the sector of space?
It is. See, honestly, I am looking in a different angle. I am looking that it is so happened that the US company came with a very intelligent assessment, assessing ourselves as one of the greatest launch capability. They have made use of it and they are going to make business out of it. But my point is that we were delayed in the development of the cryogenic development for various reasons. Now, the same delay was with the view that there should not be any competitor. That is also one of the considerations. Now, today we have overcome those difficulties, and we have proved that we are able to launch the satellite. Now we have to celebrate. That is a special celebration as far as I am concerned.
Celebrate as we move forward with more collaborations and more progress by ISRO. Many thanks to you, Mr. Narayanan, for joining in on the Brass Tack. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and that's all I have for you in this edition of Brass Tack. Thank you so much for watching. Up next is the Hard Facts with Rahul Shivshankar.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Mind you, Vance's wife is a Hindu, while Gabbard is a practicing Hindu. In fact, Donald Trump's tone-deaf policy on Bangladesh and its minorities has raised key critical questions. I put them forward for you. Why has the US State Department failed to designate Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh as a foreign terrorist organization? This, when it is the Jamaat that is responsible for the alarming rise in attacks on minorities, particularly Hindus. Not to forget Bangladesh's surge in Islamic radicalization at the hands of the Jamatis. Begging the question, what explains the suspension of the Awami League when militant extremist organizations like Jamaat and Ansarullah Bangla team are active? Should Yunus and his regime not be tried at the International Criminal Court for Hindu genocide? And will Yunus regime take responsibility for the 144 jihadist militants that they released from prisons as Yunus took over in August of 2024? These jihadists belong to ABT, JMB and the Hizb-ut-Tahrir, all directly affiliated to either the ISIS or Al-Qaeda. So the question is, why is US sitting like a mute spectator? The same Washington which proclaims to be the messiah of human rights and democracy is now feigning ignorance on Dhaka. In fact, even before Sergio Gore has donned his principal hat as ambassador to India, he has already turned active as special envoy to South and Central Asia. A day ago, Gore not only congratulated Professor Yunus for his trade and tariff negotiations, but also discussed the funeral of Usman Hadi. Yet, no word of condemnation on the killing of Dipu Chandra Das. Why? Bringing us to the big question. Has the burning of Bangladesh's conscience exposed the US hypocrisy? Anarchy is ruling the roost in Bangladesh. The questions that are being raised about the Yunus regime's tolerance, if not tacit support for radical groups, and here's why so. The Islamist leader and India hater Usman Hadi has been in fact given the status of a shaheed. There was a state honor accorded to him and a day of national mourning was declared for Hadi. There was public display of ISIS flags during Hadi's funeral, yet no Western condemnation. Unabated attacks on Hindus, other minorities are only rising with impunity. Media channel buildings have been burned down by mobs. Radicals are demanding sacking of global TV journalists. All of this, of course, begs the question, what is the Western community doing about it? Yunus is, of course, under pressure both internally and from world powers, or at least some of them. A group of influential US lawmakers have urged Bangladesh's interim government to ensure the election in February and ensure that it is free, fair and inclusive. In fact, in a letter to Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus, US Representatives Gregory Meeks, Bill Huizenga and Sydney Kamlagar Dove warned that banning an entire political party could in fact disenfranchise a large section of voters. The lawmakers said freedom of association and individual criminal responsibility are fundamental human rights, cautioning that suspending party activities or reviving the flawed International Crimes Tribunal could even undermine democratic credibility. They've called on the interim government or a future elected administration to revisit this decision to ban the Awami League as Bangladesh now prepares for its first election since the fall of the previous government. Following Hadi's death, the US Embassy in Bangladesh issued a condolence message. In fact, it stated that the US Embassy joins the people of Bangladesh in mourning the loss of youth leader Sharif Usman Hadi and offers deepest condolences to his family, friends and supporters. The French Embassy in Bangladesh expressed deep sorrow at the death of Sharif Usman Hadi, strongly condemning all forms of political violence and extending heartfelt condolences to his family, friends and supporters. This one is particularly shocking given that France is a time-tested ally to India. But that's not all. The European Union mission in Bangladesh said they were deeply saddened by the death of Hadi and extended their sincere condolences to his family, friends and all those affected. Mind you, it is his very family members, like his sister, who are spewing venom against India. Messages of condolences were posted by the German and French missions, aligning with the broader Western diplomatic response, condemning the killing and urging accountability. But while they all mourned the death of a radical anti-India student leader,
viewers, tonight is a very important debate that we're going to be looking at. I don't think I need to tell you, but India is under pressure on two fronts, the West and now the East. China and Pakistan, as you know, viewers, and we put out that US report prepared by the Pentagon, are actively collaborating. Even though we are trying to engage China, they're actively collaborating. The Pentagon's report is out. But on our eastern flank, Bangladesh is a boiling